All right, cool. Okay, so let's know you, like your name, what you do, where you are, and where you're from.
Okay, my name is Chuma Anagbado. I'm a designer, entrepreneur, investor, traveler, and I live in Lagos. Primarily, I live in Lagos. Yeah. Physically, I live in Lagos. Dude, stop mob. That's a gangster cop there.
Well, are you at home right now?
Yeah, I am. I'm in my zone with my what we call it in the mall behind me, masquerade.
Yeah.
That have become a metaphor in this COVID period. I mean, masquerades. That is something we'll talk about.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it would not be fair to just start this conversation without saying we're very close friends. So that however we journey with this conversation. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, cool. So quick one, right? This is the question. I will start and end with this question, right?
Okay.
Love and duty.
Love and duty.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about two of them?
Yes. So which one do you go with?
I'll go with duty.
Duty. Okay, but why?
I'll go with duty. Only that love is a duty.
You feel love is a duty.
I think so. I may be wrong, but I think love is a duty because it's something that you're obligated to do or you choose to do. So it becomes, once there's something that you are set out to do, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, it becomes a duty. I mean, that's my own layman understanding.
Okay, so what you're saying now is that you cannot separate the two.
Not really. Not really. I don't think you can.
At what point did you come to this realization?
I wouldn't be able to pinpoint any time in particular, but I think all of this has been going on innately in me as I experience life and go on. Yeah, so I mean, nothing is ever constant. Change is the only constant thing in life. So basically.
Okay, so for me, I feel like they are not the same. I feel like duty is even though love is a choice, you have the choice to practice love. I feel love is ever present. You know, love is a continuous energy that is within you. But now it's up to you to harness love itself to be a constant emotion or energy that you carry daily.
Well, look at it, maybe does duty ever go away?
Yeah, but
yeah, does duty ever, do we ever have in our lives where we don't have duty in focus? I mean, you said that love is a constant thing. It's always so taking from that statement, I'm just asking, is there a time that you get in your life that duty is no longer there?
Yeah, but because you can choose to be selfish. You can choose not to water the plants in your house. They will die. You can choose not to clean your house. You can choose not to be friends with anybody. You can choose to become a very self-centered, selfish human being, you know?
Yeah.
All of these things you can choose to be, but I am saying that the energy of love, you know, because I'm speaking from love from the perspective of you have to love yourself.
Okay.
So, and I'm not saying that you have the duty to love yourself.
Yes. So it's come back to duty now, because even doing this, which you just outlined, has a lot to do with you taking on that duty to not be obligated to anybody. So maybe we want to look at the meaning of what duty is. Yeah, duty is a moral or legal obligation. Yeah, a responsibility. So, for instance, you can say it's your duty to uphold the law, right? It's your duty to be a good citizen, right? It's your duty to be a father to your children, yeah? And in carrying out the duty of being a father to your children, for instance, therein comes love, because being a father requires that you have to love them, you have to provide for them.
No, because I feel like you can love your children, you can play the duty of being a father without love, showing your children love, because paying school fees is not love. And doing what is asked of you as a parent is not love.
I would deviate a bit. So it's like saying that being a father is paying school fees. No,
that's not what I'm saying. We're looking at duty. We're looking at duty, the responsibilities that come with being a father. You understand?
So when you're being a father, one of the things that you need, one of the boxes that you need to check is actually love. So I find this interesting. It's not like I have all the answers. I'm just looking at them for what they are and trying to put meanings to it. But I think in the process of being a father, love is somewhere in there. I mean, you cannot be a father without having love. You cannot be a father without having responsibility. Responsibility then translates to providing shelter, providing food, and all of that. So all other forms of responsibility. Let's even take it away from a family setting and say, okay, put it like in a workplace. If you're an entrepreneur, yeah, and you have a duty to take care of your staff, of the human resource that you have, by way of remuneration, by way of patting them on the back, recognitions, awards, and appraisals. In the process of doing that, love comes in actually, because at the end of the day, if you don't have that sense of connection, yeah, that choice to handhold the people you call your staff or your colleagues at work, then you would not be fulfilling all you need to be as an entrepreneur. So what I'm saying is that it's like a right and left hand situation. Yeah, they go hand in hand.
So I'm really happy that you brought this to the workspace, right? I feel like the heightened level of duty can disguise as love, but it's not, because duty is still very logical. You understand? You can give appraisal to your staff. You can pump them, give them energy, make them feel seen.
We need to look at what love is again.
We'll go there. But I feel like when logic, doesn't work, when logic is not practical, love can be practical, because love is unconditional. You understand? Logic, duty comes with conditions. Love is unconditional. Love is not binary. It has no shape, has no form, So it is, love can be shown to even the person you dislike. Love can be shown to even your competitor. Love can be shown to the staff that has done everything wrong. You understand? Even taking it out of that premise now, the idea of going that step further to know who your staff is, what troubles them, what keeps them going, to understand their personalities, to make them feel seen outside of the workspace, to make them feel like they have someone, that they have a guide in you beyond their boss. That's where love begins to come in. Because you as a boss, your duty is to make sure that they have the best working space. But your duty doesn't force you to go the extra mile to make sure that they are cared for mentally, psychologically, emotionally. That is not your duty. You can create a system for that.
Okay. But I just use that as an example. But then again, when you play this back against the backdrop of what love is, which is generally a deep, as defined, right, by the dictionary, a deep feeling of intense affection for something or someone.
Yeah.
When you start trying to marry that, then we begin to see differences, right, in terms of specific definition. So love has to do with the irrational, yeah, the soft part of a being that you cannot touch. It's basically felt. Yeah. So on that note, I tend to warm up to the fact that yes, there's a difference between love and duty. But I think once you go past that, that's the emotional state, that uncontrolled, intense, unplanned feeling, then steps in duty to keep it, right? Again, that will then depend on the general framework on which you live your life as a person,
Yeah.
right? Because you now want to condition yourself to fit into a particular framework, which again, this will take us into something a lot more elaborate than would be scary if I have to say so. Yeah.
I feel like, for instance, you're my friend. I love you as a friend, right? Now,
I'm just kidding.
Now, if I love you as a friend and my brother, I should be able to give you the space to fuck up. You understand? Because that's what love is. It means that I would not judge you. I see you for what you are. You understand? I see your perspective for what they are, and I choose to love you. You understand? And duty, because I feel like when people fall in love, right, then duty comes. Duty is very important because duty is responsibility. So, but I feel like when duty comes into relationships, like me and you, okay, you're supposed to do this for me, you're supposed to do this for me. See the way we live our life. I feel like people, when because of the passion and the love I have for you, okay, these are the things I'll do for you. People are so engrossed with the responsibility that comes with a loving relationship, and they forget to nurture.
Okay, so I find what you're saying very interesting. I recently read a book called The Four Agreements by
Four Agreements.
Yeah, The Four Agreements. I totally recommend that book for you. It deconstructs everything. It's written by Don Miguel. I can actually forward you the PDF of the book.
Forward on to me.
So the book talks about the four agreements, right? These are agreements that it's about the world as a dream, yeah? So there are two states of dream: the physical, that has mass and all these light and shade and people defining forms. And then it talks about the dream, which there's no matter defining those forms, but those forms are there.
Yeah.
Right? And then it talks about how we grow up and engage in different sets of agreements as a human being. it goes as far as deconstructing saying what you, so everything you know as a human being is based on an agreement. So if you wake up and say, if you tell the child you are ugly, you're stupid, you don't have sense, that child becomes that exactly. They start becoming stupid, ugly, they don't have sense, right? If you will something in the spirit, it comes to happen in the physical. If you have fears that you put in, fears that words that you put in your head, you would make it happen, right? So it deconstructs everything that you know, and then it gives you straightforward agreements that you need to, the moment you keep living by those agreements, you start breaking all the old agreements that you had. In fact, essentially, it says that every human being, the whole world, is based on different agreements. Oh, you're not supposed to do this. You're supposed to do this. And then we start rewarding ourselves for doing this and start punishing ourselves for doing this. But what happens now is humans tend to now continue punishing themselves without knowing for not doing something because they've been, for lack of words, let me use program. They've been programmed to think in a certain way, which takes us back to what I talked about, your operational framework, right? So there's no, we are not an empty void. Every single thing we say, do, or react to is based on an experience we have had, right? We are coming from somewhere. And for you to move away from that place you are coming from, you need to consciously break those old agreements and create new agreements. So in essence, I mean, it's a great book, but for me, it was something that opened my eyes to a lot of things that has been going on in my mind as a human being. I'll just give you 4 of the agreements, and you'll be very surprised. It's just something that we know. One is, say what you mean and mean what you say. That's impeccable with your word. Like, if I say, get out, I mean, get out. Now, if you apply it to everything that you do, you begin to see that human beings have all kinds of agreements that don't work. African timing becomes one of them, for instance. You tell somebody, I'm going to meet you by 1 o'clock, and then you don't meet that person. Because you already have an agreement of something called African timing, and you assume that the person will understand. Then you think it's okay, and then you don't show up. And then you show up 30 minutes or 1 hour later. So we are all guilty of this, and then we just explain it away because the explanation we give is based on an agreement that we have had that we as Africans don't keep to time. That is an agreement. But if you want to break an agreement, then you need to start saying what you mean and mean what you say. The second one is don't take things personally. We tend to take things a lot personally. Oh, this person is doing this because the person thinks. It gives an example. Imagine you see a guy that's at the petrol station, and then you shun the person. The guy shuns your lane and comes to your front. You assume that this guy is trying to be a sharp guy. Is he mad? Then you come down. You go and tell the guy, but what did they do you now? Why you block my lane? You assume that person came all the way from home just to jump you on the queue. No assumption. Dude, what's up? Why are you doing this? You have asked the question. The guy will not tell you, oh, my son is sick in the hospital. I really need to get petrol before so that I can go and treat him. Have you seen the world of difference from your assumption and the reality, what is driving that movement? Or it will be like, oh, there's a life that needs to be saved, or I just need to get to my office and put fuel, I'm going to miss a deal. And you ask, but you don't know why I'm here. You don't know if I have to. That opens up conversations. And it's said that if human beings can actually live by these 4 agreements, a lot of conflicts will disappear. The other one is don't make assumptions. Exactly. I've used assumptions a lot. Never make assumptions. Always ask. Don't think that, oh, this person is doing this. Why? Right? And then the last one is, do your best and leave the rest. Always do your best. Because you don't go up beating yourself up because I didn't do this, I couldn't do this. So it says that even if you're not able to live up to 1, 2, 3 at every point in time, don't kill yourself. Make sure you're always doing your best at that time, and just keep on going. Just have that open mind to question and just be truthful and just be yourself.
Those four values or laws are not bad, but it's a struggle. You know, it's a struggle for people. I remember this night we were driving in Lagos in the night, driving towards something that was urgent, and you were driving crazy. You understand? I remember looking at you and telling you, now, Shabi, you understand all those people where they drive crazy, where you the vex for. Now
Exactly.
you understand.
So they're not even, I think they are just thought cues, right? They're not laws, they're just thought cues, things that will guide you. Like, okay, so at the end of the day, really, it simplifies life. But the truth is, you see these thought cues, they are extremely hard to implement. And the reason why they are extremely hard to implement or live by is because of the framework that the world exists on. So those frameworks are religious, they are societal, they are political, they are economic. So all those frameworks, so you need to, from a micro position, a micro point, start expanding and start deconstructing. Right? It's a lot of journey. It's a lot to process. It's a lot to. It reminds me of the saying, "Common sense is not common." Right?
Yeah, it also just makes you, it's what I always try to do. You just have to be present with yourself. Like, be very conscious, yes, and be present with yourself. It starts from you. So my next question now goes into,
and yeah, as far as saying you can't force people to be who you want them to be, right? So if you're going to apply that to your relationship, the advice is that you look for somebody or a person that has similar agreements with you, quote and unquote.
Or instead of looking, you can just be exactly who you are. You understand? So that when when people
once you're who you are, you would attract people like you.
Yeah.
Right. So once you're different framework, then you apply. I think the strongest point in it is about being true to self.
Yeah.
If both of us be true to ourselves and deconstruct and pull out from the frameworks. Now, if you choose to live within those frameworks, then be true to those frameworks, right? But if you have an issue with the framework, then don't live by those frameworks. And you realize that about 99% of humans, actually more than 99% of humans, live within those frameworks because of what people would say, right? So their true self is subsumed and they live an entire life thinking of what people will say. And now here's what happens. If you check human beings, humans that are largely can be classified as successful, that people follow, it is because they are living themselves, their true reality. I'll give you a classic example. And it doesn't matter what that person is saying. That is the funny truth. It doesn't matter what that person is doing. What matters is that the person is convinced that this is me and I'm doing me. There is this popular guy in Nigeria now that is trending all over the place. One funky guy that calls himself a man of God, right? The way he is taking religion and turned it upside down, the way he behaves, and I look at the guy and I see this guy is just being himself. So imagine a criminal, a pure criminal, now manifesting as somebody that preaches the word of God. And he brings in all those criminal tendencies, all those criminal nuances, all those criminal character behavior. But he is talking Jesus. Dude, if you see the crowd that this guy has, right? And this goes beyond whatever level of education you have, whatever you have been in the world. Doesn't matter if you're a professor or a PhD. We already know that a lot of people are daft. I mean, forget all the jeeps and all the money that people have made. We have a lot of very well, quote unquote, educated people that don't have common sense, right? And that's largely why we are the way we are as Africans. I mean, extrapolating it back to our society as a whole, you know.
So this is really about perception. I don't want Muku to go too deep, but I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing it back to you. What I mean too deep, I don't want to go into this direction. I'm bringing it back to you. So perception. At what point did you realize that the perception of what people thought about you and the perception of yourself did not align? And what have you been doing to make sure that you stay true to your core?
Okay, for me, there's no one time. It's an ongoing journey, right? So at different points in time in my life, I've come to face some very hard truths about who I am. Now, what happens to people is if you're able to break free from those frameworks, those agreements you had, right, then you are termed a rebel because you are rebelling against a system, right? So at some point for me, for instance, I grew up in a home where there's religions, Catholic, they're called Catholics, and we did 15 up to 45 decades of the rosary. I mean, I approached year 2000 with morbid fear that the world was going to end. We go to church and they are, prayer for Nigeria in distress. I mean, 1999, this is 2020, right? Prayer for Nigeria in distress. 3 days darkness, the world is going to come to an end. And, all sorts of doom and gloom. And you're just filled with this morbid fear. In all of that morbid fear, somehow, somewhere in me, I was convinced that all of this was bullshit. Sorry, pardon my French. But I could not break away from that framework because I was scared. Scared of what my mom would say, what my dad would say, what people would say, what my friends would say, how I look in society. So at some point in the year 2000, it just hit me, boom. And I was like, man, dude, drop this shit. Be yourself. And I told myself I wasn't going to. I stopped going to church. That was my first act of rebellion, right? So I broke that agreement that I have to go to church every Sunday. And I was still hiding because I had to tell people, well, are you a Catholic? In forms, I'll feel Christian, right? That was lying. I was lying. So I lied through university that I was a Christian, but I wasn't going to church, right? So it took a while to break free of all those old agreements. And I've gotten to a point where if you ask me, I'll tell you, I don't have any religion. Must I have one? I'm a human being, right? I didn't get married in the church because at that point, I was already on my journey of breaking those agreements. I got to a point after I was supposed to baptize, there was pressure from family. Let's baptize the children. At some point, okay, fine. You see, then it comes again. You want to please people, right? But deep down in me, I didn't see any reason. It was of no consequence to me. It was of no importance. I went on that process, and then something happened, and it strengthened my resolve because of the way I was treated at the church where I went to. The catechist and the priest was just being very, very funny, unnecessary. So not what you would expect within such an environment, and that reinforced my path of rebelling, my journey of rebelling, to say, dude, you're not supposed to be here. You just came here now. You see what you're facing, and that reinforced my resolve. And then I pulled back that move, right, and said, no, look, these kids will grow and choose what they to be. All I need to teach them is, look, be yourself, do what is right, do what is wrong, care for people, and that's it, right? So it's an evolving journey. That happened with religion, right? So there are several of them. It also happened with career much, much earlier. I mean, I was on the part of, everybody wants to be an engineer. I was good in math and technical drawing, therefore I could be an engineer. But that was a lie. The truth was that I needed to be something else that was me. And at that point, I would count myself as lucky that somehow I'm always rebelling before it becomes too late and get myself back on track. The general school effect. I've gotten to the point of our family frameworks, for instance. It's a journey, and I'm thinking, again, looking at what is happening with COVID, and I'm saying, are you sure as Africans, that nuclear family is what we should be practicing. Are you sure we shouldn't go back to extended, where different units live together? Because what COVID is now telling us is that as units, we fare better. I don't see two people knowing it all to raise a child, for instance. We have a saying that it takes a village, a community to raise a child. That child is going to live in the community, not with those two persons raising.
Okay.
So these are not right or wrong.
Before you go any further, right? Since you're talking about, you've spoken about the journey of disconnecting from religion. You've spoken about a moment in time experiencing something that made it clear for you that you didn't want your kids to be baptized at that time. And if they grow up and they decide that they want to be baptized, that's fine. But you also spoke about the idea of what the family structure, looking at it from either a micro or a macro perspective, right? So I'm not asking you, how come you had the final power to decide that your kids shouldn't be baptized? If you truly believe in the idea that it takes a village, how come it was your decision that halted the baptism of your kids?
Okay. First off, they happen to be my responsibility, right? Because at that point in time, they barely understand what a religious practice, for instance, entails.
No, but you are more than one person with the responsibility for the child. So let's take you, your partner. Let's forget about the family now.
It wasn't a sole decision, right?
Okay.
My partner was involved. We went at it all together, and she was indifferent, really.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, if she had insisted, I want them to be baptized, then we may have a different conversation, right? That will lead us to a compromise that we'll agree on, right? So it wasn't a sole decision.
Okay.
You understand? Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I mean, fine.
The old dad was involved, and I had to explain to him why I took that decision, and he also gave me his own reasons why he thinks he agrees with me, but that he thinks I should do otherwise. And I ended it with, look, if you agree with me, but you think I should do otherwise, then I know why you want me to do otherwise, and I will do it, right? Because of certain agreements I've broken with the framework I live in as a human being. So, again, like I said, I think I need to put this out there. There is no framework that is wrong.
Yeah, you just have to find the framework that works for you.
Works for you, that is true to you. As long as you're in a framework and you don't feel free, you feel you have to subsume some of the things you are as a person to be able to exist in that framework, it becomes a problem. And so that we don't make this thing look like it's a very small thing, it goes as far as how you carry your hair, how you dress, how you so if there's clear that as an MD CEO, you must wear a jacket. Really, that's an agreement. And if you agree by it, then you by it. But if you don't feel comfortable in it, then you can be a Zuckerberg. You can decide to wear jackets in some instances, and you can decide to wear t-shirts in some instances. It's about you being comfortable. The whole idea of you getting to that part where you get to choose what you are, what you do, and who you are, it has been proven that if you are able to exist at that level, then you start achieving your peak.
Okay. So look at it from this perspective, right? Let's even assume that you function from that level of clarity, right? And then you begin to create partnership in terms of personal relationship, partnership in terms of work, partnership in terms of community. And people know you for this. But I do believe in, even as you function at that level, I believe in the idea of flexibility. The idea that I believe in this right now. Tomorrow I might believe in something else, and if I do, I will change otherwise. Right?
The journey, you can change. You can once you come to new realizations, it changes.
So
right?
so this is where my question actually comes out from. What happens when you've taken people along for a while? Then your core begins to change, and who you were when you started a partnership in terms of business, community, personal, whatever, changes. What happens to those people? How do you carry those people along? How do you make sure that the people who started a relationship you had relationship with for years, then now you wake up one day and be like, I'm a different Omo, I'm a different Chuma. What happens to those people? How do you make sure that you carry those people along the best way you can?
Oh, it's pretty simple. It's communication. If you go back to before agreements I just reviewed, one of them is no assumption, right? So you can't assume that other people now understand you. So you have to communicate clearly. It will be direct or indirect communication. What matters is that you communicate.
No. You cannot say it could be direct or indirect communication. Indirect communication is not communication.
Oh, it is.
Because indirect communication is you still assuming that the person knows what you are saying.
I'm just using English now, right? Semantics. As long as you've added communication. Communication means the person that you are sending a message to, right? You send out a message and the person gets it, right? Again, the rule is that communication must happen. And for communication must happen, it has to be that the messages that was sent out were received.
Yes.
Now,
and understood.
Yeah, you may not be able to ascertain the level of how the message is received and understood, because that is practically impossible. So whether you choose to do direct or indirect communication, that same possibility of the message not getting across exists. You can tell somebody, I am going to kill you, right? For instance, we have been told that if you go out and you don't do social distancing, you will contract COVID-19.
Yep.
Or you have a high chance. That is a clear, direct.
Yes.
Did we understand it? No. So
that's some people understand. Some people are stubborn. Some people do not. I don't think people don't understand. I think people do not believe. Then also, I feel like the situation. I feel like the situation also, the conditions of people would also determine what they think.
That is exactly why I said direct and indirect. So I will give you an indirect communication on COVID, for instance. So you've been told that don't crowd, but you go out and crowd, right? You receive the direct communication and you did not respond. You did not understand it. You heard it, but you did not understand it because you don't want to understand it. You also need to know that people have their own agreements, right? So there's a perception to what any message that is sent across, whether directly or indirectly. Now, that same person goes out, or in that crowd, somebody falls down, and they test the person, and the person has COVID-19. Let's assume. What do you think will happen to everybody then? They will clearly now understand it. But that was indirect. Right? That was indirect. When you were sat down and you are told, look, do this, some will get it and go ahead. So what I'm saying is, what matters is for you to communicate. And the best form of communication is consistency. To communicate that, okay, this is what it is. Not just in words, but in deeds.
I also feel
Right?
like when communicating, I feel like um, the perception of I feel like it's important that ego is removed, because a lot of the times people who believe that they have the right information, you know, um, actually derail others. So
Oh, yeah.
if you are in a partnership, business partnership, and you truly believe that the right information is from you, you communicate it in a very discerning way, in a way where it's like, listen to me, I know what is right, right? Then
Yeah.
also,
I think it's right based on my own level of knowledge, right? Communicating it verbally is one way. So verbal is one form of communication. There are other forms. But that the receptor gets the message is not in your control, right? And there's nothing that you would do that would guarantee that the person has understood it. So it goes back to one of the arguments I just mentioned. Do your best. You cannot get it all, right? So if look for that which would be your own possible best form of communication, and send it, that your business partner or that the populace does not understand it is out of your power, because most times um, it has to do with what that person, the person's reality and things they live with and the framework in which they live in, which you cannot change, right? So for me, I think communication is the only way to go about it. And I think that communication is not just straightforward. It's a very complex part
definitely,
of
don't you feel
human.
like don't you feel like to communicate well is to know the language of the person that you are about to communicate with. For instance, if you know that this person speaks hip hop, and then you send a communication of classical music, you know, is that you communicating?
No, you always have to communicate within the context of whatever situation you find yourself. So, in the case of the government telling the people, or rather, a, I'm looking for an example that would, okay, so you tell your mechanic, I don't believe that you should put oil, right?
Yeah.
After you start, I think you should put the oil before you bleed it. He hears you, right? But he goes ahead to do the opposite. So there was a clear verbal communication, but it was perceived within the framework he understands his trade. And then you tell him, okay, no problem. And then he says, oh, this is my account number. Pay me 50K. And then you transfer 10K. And then they ask you, okay, why you send me 10K? You say, well, you didn't do what I asked you to do. You didn't do what I think was right. You clearly communicated that, okay, that service that you did is this. Not by saying it, but by paying him an amount which you didn't fit. Now, it is you giving fit. It doesn't mean it's the right amount. He can then come up with counter arguments, and you may not listen to his arguments. You will keep quiet. Tomorrow, your car will break down. You will drive your car to that same guy, and then you will just say that, Oga, I dey do see motor full here, I dey repair motor, I dey do other things. He will not tell you what the problem is, right? But he will indirectly start not giving you service. You will then read the language and then say, Oga, what's up? You open your app and then you transfer 45K to him. Everything changes. The person now go, oh, hey, Oga, but I don't go to, so I think it's not that straightforward. Human beings are very complex. very, very complex. So it's always a work in progress. But at the end of the day, what matters is that you are making an effort that is to the best of your own ability. Now, we all have different abilities, and you need to recognize that there are different abilities, and you do not expect Mr. A to exactly engage or relate the way it is. I'm learning a lot at my workplace. I'm managing a lot of designers, and I'm beginning to get each person's how they perceive and receive information. And I try to go over and beyond. But at the end of the day, it still boils down to me doing my best and trying to get the message across by constantly having that interaction and feedback. And many people do basically, for instance, is verbal communication.
Okay, so this is like we constantly have conversations like this, like every time. My rounding up question. You said?
As you just wanted to put this on camera.
Yeah, my rounding up question would have several ones like this, but my rounding up question is: now you see, you look at your father, and you can see your father now, the older man he is now, and you know the memory of who your father used to be, and you can see the transitions. What type of father would you want your kids to see when they are your age now?
I think, knowing what I know, I'll prefer to be a hero father. Yeah. Maybe because I was a rebel, as opposed to some of my siblings. I had my own view of my dad, which I've come to realize that was just my own view. Right? I had my own view of my parents. That was just me. No one else had that view. So maybe it was the rebel in me trying to understand some of the things that they did that was outside the framework in which we were raised. So suffice to say that I've always lived on the edge of frameworks. I don't know if that makes sense. I've always lived on the edge of frameworks. So even while I was in frameworks, I've always been that person questioning and saying, okay, why this?
Yeah.
But this makes sense. So, and I think that applies to a peculiar character trait. Some certain set of people count as being lucky and unlucky at the same time. So yeah, I would want to be a hero father. By hero father, I mean a father that you look up to when you look for answers on how to go about things in life, right? Now, my perspective about life is very broad. It's very, very big. Like it's the entire society, the entire community. So I want my children to look at who their father was in society and say, okay, because at the end of the day, that is what matters. You die, get buried, right? And what your people that you're giving birth to take away is when they're out there, what is the image? What is the message that my ancestor, who you become, left? What is the footsteps that you walked in? How does it pave? How does it open doors for me? How does it pave the way? Right? Because at the end of the day, that is what matters. So yeah, I think I like the hero that instance. I mean, without the cape, yeah.
Okay. So, going back to my first question, love and duty. So, looking at the relationship with your children, would you want them to now finally come to the conclusion like, wow, I love my father and he loves me unconditionally? Or would you want them to say, I have a duty to my father and he has a duty to me?
I'll go with the former. I wouldn't want it to be duty. I don't want him to be beaten. I'll go with the former. I mean, I know this man for who he is, and he happens to be my father. And I, not just that, I respect him for who he is and for what he stood for. And for that to happen, I really need to see it that he was who he was. I mean, without a care in the world that he was who he was, and he believed in a genuine message. So I think I'll go with the former. Yeah.
All right, so I guess love wins. All right, bro. Love you, man.
For you to win. For how you guys I hope they're cool.
Yeah, man.
Not in months now. Wow. It's fine. We are good. Yeah, COVID is having a party in Nigeria as I speak. Like, yeah, there's a party going on. There's new infections on go. Like, people are just
same here. 500 new infections, I think, was announced yesterday in Ghana.
It's fine. We'll get there. We'll get there. I think the truth is we don't have much options as Africans. We have a failed public health infrastructure. We have failed systems, failed society. So trying to copy Western models that relied on some of these things that we don't have was just a matter of time. You can't tell people to go and stay at home. You don't have addresses. You don't take food to them in their homes. And you are saying stay at home.
Maybe people go drink dogoyaro, neem tree.
Go and stay at home. You don't know the number of citizens that you have by the name. In UK, everybody, every human being is accounted for. It's only when you have your database that you can then say, stay at home. I am coming to give you palliative. So even if our government is genuinely positioned, interested in caring for the people, it cannot.
Yeah.
The doctor does not have it. Okay, bring
we don't have that structure. And I do not believe that the current people in seat right now across board even understand how to go about creating the system that would enable us navigate this better. But I don't want to make COVID enter our nice conversation. We could discuss that one later.
You just popped up. Anyways. All right, man.
All right, bro. Later. Yeah, easy.
Take care of yourself, bro.
You too.
All right.